Today's guest on Rowing on the Square podcast is Tony Harris, Senior Fellow in Social Innovation at Babson's College, where he focuses on reimagining education in a rapidly changing world. Tony is a longtime entrepreneur and educator. He has launched ventures and taught across 4 continents, always blending business with social impact. He's a passionate rower and a U.S. Rowing Level 3 certified coach who's trained and competed globally, even once under missile fire at the Dnipro River in Ukraine. Today, Tony is here to talk about his remarkable return to rowing just 8 months after a spine fusion surgery of L4, L5, and how resilience, recovery, and sport intersect in his journey. I hope you enjoy our conversation. So tell us a little bit about, your rowing background and the journey in and out of injury and return to rowing. So tell me about it.
Well, I mean, my story starts in the late 1970s when I was at university in London, and I'd been playing rugby, and but playing rugby in London, as you might imagine, is not that easy. There's no rugby fields in London, so you have to sit on a coach and drive for an hour. So I was looking for something else, and somebody suggested rowing, and the only rowing that I'd ever seen was the boat race. By the way, did you watch the boat race yesterday?
I didn't. My kids had me
Oh,
out and about. Oh my goodness.
oh, it was absolutely magnificent. So Cambridge was predominant, as they have been both in the women's and the men's crews for years and years. But what was really incredible was that on paper, the Oxford crew, which included several Olympians,
Oh, wow.
they had more power, more watts, right?
Yeah.
And if at all that the experts were anticipating a very, very close race. In fact, it didn't happen that way, and Cambridge won by 17 seconds, which is a huge margin for
Oh,
that
no.
race.
Yeah.
And they were theoretically the smaller crew, but the consensus seems to be that they won because they gelled together as a crew.
Mm.
And it's a great lesson. And we tell our crews that all the time, right? You say you can't have, 8 rowers. You can have 8 rowers in the boat. They're all excellent athletes, but if they don't row together,
Yep.
that's gonna negatively impact boat speed, and we saw that yesterday. Anyway, so all I'd seen was the boat race, and so I went down to the London Rowing Club in Putney, and I made some inquiries, and they said, "Yeah, you can join us, but you're going to have to. The way that we start our novices is you're going to have to spend about a month in our tank." So I don't know what a tank was, so I said, "Fine, that's okay." And they took me down. They showed me around the club and took me down into the basement. And in those days, it was dark and dank and smelly.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat on this funny sliding seat, and I put this big wooden beast of an oar in my hands. And they said, "Okay, you got to come up to the front now, and then you push away with your legs." And the minute I did that, I knew this is my sport. I just loved that feeling. And that was the start. So I rode with LRC for a couple years, and concurrently joined the university rowing crew, and I captained the men's lightweight 8 for a while, and that was the beginning of my journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So fun. I love hearing like people's rowing origin stories. I think that there's always that moment where you're just like, ooh, this is for me. This is what I do. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And I mean, it was a shame because I was at prep school in South Africa, but in those days, unlike now, when there actually is a very, very dynamic rowing scene, there was very little rowing because if I only wished that I'd taken it up at high school.
Mm.
But nonetheless, people can absolutely walk on at the university level, and they do. And actually, one of the interesting things about they interviewed the president of the Oxford Boat Club yesterday, and I think there were several people in that boat that were walk-ons that had not rowed before. So now you've got a boat that consists of people that have just started, I mean, within a year or so,
Mhm.
with Olympians. So it's an amazing thing. So anyway, yeah, it's a wonderful sport, and I intend to never stop.
Me too. We're gonna keep at it forever. They're gonna have to wheel me away from the boat.
Absolutely. Wheel us off the river.
Exactly. And right now you're coaching also too, correct?
Yes. So I started, after that, I've been rowing sort of recreationally at the master's level for years and years. And then I started coaching in 2017 at Phillips Academy, and I coached there for 3 years. And I currently coach at Brooks School in the spring, and in the fall, I coach at Bedford Crew up in Hooksett, New Hampshire.
That's fantastic. So right now, are you in the heat of things, getting the kids
Yes, we're
ready and
right in the middle. We race on Wednesdays and Saturdays. It's a very, very intense spring. Our novice crews tend to do the racing on Wednesdays, and then the varsity crews, or the junior varsity, I should say, and then the varsity crews race on Saturdays. So we fully booked now from now until nearer, actually.
amazing, amazing. I remember that schedule. I coached some juniors for a while, and it's just like it's you as soon as you come out of the erg room, you're on the water, you're going, and it seems like you're putting the boats on the trailer, you're taking them off the trailer, you're practicing, you're putting them back on the trailer. You're just like constantly going until it like
Yeah.
abruptly stops. Then it's over. Send the kids away. See you guys after summer.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the one difference actually at Brooks is because of the really magnificent facilities. So the school is right on the shores of Lake Cochichewick in North Andover, Mass. And because everybody loves racing there, I would say almost every single race is at home. So we don't have to deal with all the trailering, which is a bonus. The schools comes to us.
Yes. Oh, that's amazing. That's so much fun. Well, tell me more about when did you decide that when did you have your injury or when did you decide to have surgery? Because I know that you had back surgery, correct?
Yes. So I've had, I mean, just I suppose, I mean, not a technical term, but I've had back troubles, let's put it that way, for decades.
Mm,
And that probably has its roots in too much squatting with heavy weights when I was too young, combined with rugby
mm,
and some little bit of mountain biking. But the deterioration in your discs, that's a thing that happens naturally with age. And pretty much, I'm now 65. Everybody has some degree of disc disease.
mhm,
But in the last 5 years, it's been a little bit more than back troubles. And then about, I would say, 2 years ago, it got to the point where the pain was actually preventing me from rowing and preventing me from cycling, which is my other big sport. Um, and so I went to see a pain management chap, and he said, "Look, we can give you some steroid injections, but just understand that they're not going to fix the problem. It may just take away the pain for a while. And as long as you are okay with that, we can do that." So I had a set of steroid injections, actually six of them, and the relief was almost instant. I mean, it was unbelievable. But then I made a big mistake, and I got, within 2 days, I was back on the erg,
oh, wow.
pushing away, and that I should not have done that. But nonetheless, the relief lasted probably for 4 to 5 months. and then it didn't. And so I went back and I got another set of injections. And again, the relief was instant, but this time it only lasted 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So I knew the writing was on the wall. So I went to get an MRI, and the evidence was pretty conclusive that between L4 and L5, the disc, I think there were sort of two issues. The one that it had been ground down to almost nothing, and the other issue was that L4 had slipped out of alignment.
Mhm.
And so L4 and L5 were no longer in alignment, which means that all of the plumbing, the electrical and water and all of the plumbing that goes up and down that little spinal canal, those nerves were trapped because of the slip. And that was extremely painful. And it was also, the pain came, it was unpredictable. So that was no good. So he said, the pain specialist said, look, I think that you are a candidate for a fusion. You need to go and find yourself a surgeon who can talk to you about this. So I asked around and I was recommended to Dr. Chima Ohebolem at the New England Baptist. And he said, yeah, in my case, that this was the way to go. And so I had the surgery in August of last year. And it was amazing. I mean, I got up that afternoon after the surgery. I mean, it's a major surgery.
Yeah.
And I've had zero pain since then.
Wow.
So it was very, very successful, and this guy was an absolute genius. I mean, what a master of his art. I mean, he's amazing man. And yeah, so what's that? That's August, what, 8 months roughly,
Yeah.
8 months, something like that. Yep.
Did you do any rehab prior to the surgery, or did you go into the surgery
No, in
as long
fact,
as
I
you
mean,
possibly
prior to
can?
the surgery, I had to stop. I mean, I was working out, including daily sessions on the erg, until about 2 to 3 months prior to the surgery, and I was in so much pain.
Mm.
I couldn't do anything. So no, I did nothing before the surgery. But what was to my advantage is that I was in pretty good shape anyway, and so obviously for anybody who's considering this, you want to be in the best shape you can be before you go into surgery.
Yes, definitely. And post-surgery, you said that the pain was instantaneously gone. How long did your surgical pain hang around?
Yeah,
Incisional,
that was probably
excision.
that was without any question the most unpleasant part. I mean, I would say that for the first, I mean, the first week and the first week or two were tough. There's absolutely no question about that. I did a smart thing, which is we rented this hospital bed, so that allows you to adjust the height.
Mm.
Because if you think about it, almost any movement that you do with your body involves your back in
Yeah.
some way.
Hmm.
And while they want you to move, more specifically, they want you to walk, you have to be very, very careful because you've got this titanium plate wedged between and bolted in between these two vertebrae.
Hmm.
And then you've got all of these muscles which need to reconnect and all the bits and pieces that they slice through. Um, so every single movement is very tentative. You have to be very careful. You don't want to even cough, because
Yeah.
so, so yeah, the first couple of weeks were tough. There's no getting around it. and made worse by the drugs.
Mhm.
So I took this, what's it called? Oxycodone, the one that's causing all this havoc
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
out there. And um, while it's pretty good, it's true at managing pain. The worst side effect is constipation.
Yeah.
So that is just a complete nightmare. So I decided after a week of being on this of a week, I decided to just go cold turkey. So I
Um,
stopped the drugs, and I also stopped the Advil and the what's the other one, Tylenol that I was on, and because I'd essentially been I was taking a daily cocktail of
yeah.
Tylenol and Advil for at least 2 months before the surgery, 2 to 3 months to manage the pain.
Yeah.
And I stopped that as well. And so, that's not good for you to take that amount of, yeah. So I stopped all of that. And within 24 hours, my body responded favorably. We don't need to go into any more detail, but let me
Yeah.
just say that, boy, was that good.
Yeah.
You know,
Those
and
strong medicines for pain can really put people into a position where you get to that point, and then once you are off of them, you do have that relief. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I haven't taken anything since. So
Oh,
that was one of the turning points was the going off the drugs. And then I would say it's hard to, and I didn't keep any kind of log or anything like that, but I would say, even in the first couple of weeks, you've got, the first week you're on this walker, which I actually found was awful because it made me bend forward and bend
yeah.
down. So I kind of got rid of that. But you've got these sticks that you're walking with, and they want you to walk several times a day and then through the night. So I would just get up, you know, and getting when I say get up, that's a 5 minute procedure.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
got to do this log roll off the hospital bed, and you be just have to be incredibly careful. But I would walk, and I would just walk up and down the corridor inside the house. And
Did
then
you
you
have
kind of,
any, oh, sorry, did you have any bracing? Did you wear a brace at all or?
oh yes, you have a massive brace that you wear, particularly when you're walking.
Mhm.
You don't really wear it when you're lying down. You can, but there's no need. But oh yes, you put the brace on. And then the next sort of milestone was going outside. And then you sort of shuffle outside, and you walk for, I don't know, 60 seconds in one direction, and then you come back.
Um,
And then 3 hours later, you repeat that. And then 3 hours later, you repeat that. And then the next day, you do, 100, you do 2 minutes out and 2 minutes back. And you eventually you work your way up, you work your way up. And now, of course, you're not lifting anything. It's a 5 pound maximum. So I just went very slowly. I took the advice of, I did exactly as I was told to do, more or less.
mhm.
Um, and I think that's the name of the game. It's just is slow but sure, slow but sure. One of the things that people need to be very careful about is notwithstanding what some, not Dr. O'Haberlin, he was very straight with me. But if you go online and you look at all the different stuff that's on YouTube, um, people will say, yeah, you can move faster and don't have to worry about this and don't have to worry about that. But actually, this surgery, even though it's been now performed for decades, has a very, very high failure rate. Something like 20 to 30% of these fusion surgeries end up with another surgery within 10 to 15 years. And As far as I can tell, the reason seems to be is that people don't listen to the doctor and they go crazy and they push it.
Mhm.
You've got, so for example, the way that the surgery works is they place this titanium block in between your vertebra, and then it's secured with two bolts and two rods. And then the idea is that the bone actually grows around this titanium block and becomes part of the vertebra, and that's actually what gives you your stability. But that takes between 12 and 18 months. So if I now get on the erg and I start really pushing it, causing shear forces in my spine, I'm going to make that unstable.
Yeah.
And so the bottom line is you need to be very, very, very careful and very modest. And because a lot, as successful as my surgery was, and I have full confidence in Dr. Hebelim, nobody wants to do this again.
Um,
It's a big surgery, and yeah, you don't want to do it again. So you just need to be very, very, very careful. Um, but I think what got me through it was there was I mean, every day would be an exaggeration, but I would say several times a week there was one little sort of victory. So, the first victory is you can use your grabber that they have for elderly people, and you can use that to pick up your shoe. So now you don't need your wife to come and put the shoes on you, right?
no?
And then another one, I remember a big one was when I could actually, I had enough flexibility so I could actually bend down and do up my own shoes. Never mind, I could put them
Yeah.
on with the grabber. Um, and when you can put on your own sweatshirt or whatever,
Yeah.
because you can now start moving around. Um, and then, um, when you do your first, say, mile outside,
Hmm.
and so
How long
those things.
did it take you to get to walking a mile outside?
Oh, to be honest, I don't really remember, but I would say I would say, the first 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, you're just doing 60 seconds. But maybe I would say maybe after about 3 weeks, I was I was moving around. I mean, look, after 4 weeks, I went back to coaching.
Oh my
Now, I
goodness.
wasn't able to do everything. I was wearing this very heavy brace,
Mhm.
and I didn't have the strength to lift the outboard motor out or anything like that. So
Yeah.
they gave me a driver.
Oh.
So I was in the launch with my megaphone and a
Mhm.
driver, and I was able to. Now I was obviously had to be very, very careful because these small
Yeah.
boats are on stable platforms. But that gives you some example. That gives you. So after a month, I was doing that. So I feel like I recovered actually pretty quickly.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
And then I would say after that, the next really big milestone for me was getting on my bicycle. Now, I don't mean actually on the road, but on the stationary trainer.
Yeah.
And the brilliant thing about cycling is that there's very, very little strain on the back,
Yeah.
almost nothing, I think. So once I was able to get back on the bike and just start spinning, that was a huge psychological, because that gave me even more pleasure than the walking. I mean, the walking was great because it got me outside and I was breathing this good fresh air. But getting back on my bicycle, that was absolutely the best. And then I started recovering really. And at that point, then I was going to physical therapy. So I was doing that twice a week. And then I started riding my bicycle to physical therapy right here in Newburyport.
Wow.
And then the recovery started picking up after 3 months. So that would have been August, September. By the end of October, I had a check-in with Dr. Haberlin, and he cleared me to do whatever I wanted to do.
Wow, that's amazing. And so
Yeah. Of
did you go
course,
right
you
away to right away to get on the erg?
well, I got on the erg about no, I was hesitant about the
That's
erg
good.
because um, make one mistake and you're going to be in trouble again. So it took me about another 6 weeks or 2 months to get back on the erg, and I got back on and I did. I think I did 2 minutes. Um, and it felt terrific. I obviously put the damper as far down as possible,
Yeah.
and I was flying, Adrian, at the rate of about 14 strokes a minute.
I love it.
And my split was when I was able to get under 3 minutes, and then I got under 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, now I'm really cranking. But the key is, and I'm still only doing a maximum of 10 minutes, and
Wow.
I do that 3 times a week.
Mhm.
Because as much as we love rowing, the erg, unless your technique is absolutely perfect, you're going to cause those shear forces.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say the silver lining in all of this is that I've now, as a result of this surgery and the recovery and what I'm doing right now, is I've become much, much more aware. I'm now acutely aware of what the correct technique is
Mhm.
and what it should be and why it should be that. So I've, as a result, become a much better coach. And I don't let kids get away with subpar technique anymore.
Mhm. That's amazing that it's made this transition in your coaching. And how do you stop the kids right then and there and you're right in that moment and changing that technique and how are you applying
Well,
that each
I
day?
think you have to put it in terms that they understand. I don't think teenagers respond very well to, you must do A because if you don't, when you get to 50 or whatever it is, there are going to be some downsides. But I think if you put it to them in terms of the effect on boat speed, then they do open their ears.
Um,
And a lot of the mistakes that kids make, for example, and that starts way before they're even taking a rowing stroke. So they're not sitting correctly.
mhm.
Their grip is incorrect. Their hand position is incorrect.
Mhm.
So I've found now that what has changed in my coaching is I spend a lot more time when I'm with novices on posture and hand position. And why do we say that you shouldn't feather with your outside hand? Why exactly is that?
Mhm.
And I think if you go through it with them, they get it.
Yeah.
Um, and then as they improve a lot, the other thing that I've found myself doing is insisting on rate caps. So I don't let the novices go beyond a 22 or a 24 or whatever it is until they have demonstrated several pieces of perfect rowing.
Yes. That's amazing.
Because for all of us, I
Yeah.
mean, for
It's
all
a
of
good
us,
lesson.
you,
Yeah,
you
it's a good
go you go
lesson.
faster and faster, and your technique drop your stroke becomes shorter and shorter, and you cut corners at the front and at the back, and your technique goes down the hill. So it's much, much better to have a nice, long, relaxed stroke where everyone is rowing beautifully together rather than the sort of frantic up and down the slide, with skidding and burning rubber and all that.
Hmm. I think a lot of times those kids, they just get going. They just want to slam up to the front and use that momentum into the catch and momentum through the finish, too much laying back and putting hip strain and then coming forward, like continuing to create body angle, body angle, body angle, body angle as they head into the catch and getting out of what I call like the power position, like that nice tall position where you're over your
Right.
feet, where you're in that deadlift position. And so many
That's right.
kids will get into that over compressed position where everything just kind of falls into the catch, and then they're in a weak position, so they got to move out of it. So they're opening up early, and then they're hurting their backs, they're hurting their shoulders, their heels are touching their seats. Like there's a whole host of things that these kids will do in the name of speed that it's fine. The whole host of things that they do in the name of speed in order to try to go as fast as possible. And I think the goal is always boat speed, but I think that a lot of times the kids put that above and beyond anything else. And so they think that they're going to be faster and they're not.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right.
So when did you know that you were back? Like when did you're like, yeah, like I'm 100%. This is, was there a certain
I don't think
moment?
there was any one particular moment, and I don't even, to use your term, I don't even feel like now I'm back,
Hmm.
because I'm still not. I can only get when I get on the erg. I haven't been in a boat yet,
Okay.
but I can only get about. I can't get more than three-quarters the way up the slide at the moment. So I'm still working on that.
Hmm.
And I'm loath to push things until I want those. I want that healing to
Hmm.
have really happened. I'm sort of chomping at the bit because I've got a beautiful 1970 wood boat that is waiting for me.
Oh man, how
Um,
exciting. Oh.
and I'll probably this summer. My idea is to get onto the water myself this summer. I mean, at the moment, I'm coaching 6 days a week.
Oh.
That
Yeah.
just I'm just flat out, and I want to take my own return to the water slowly
Hmm.
and carefully, and so, um, but to answer your question, yeah, I don't really feel like I'm back 100%. I feel that I've made huge progress. Um, but it's a, I mean, it sounds, it's a cliched thing, but it is a journey. It's very much a journey.
It is. It is. And when you're looking at such a big return, you have to, like you said, you have to take it slow because you got to wait for that healing to happen. And when you get out on the water, do you think that you'll do some type of like, will you abbreviate your stroke? Will you modify your boat? Or will you make any changes to it to kind of allow you to move for a
Um,
little bit?
I'm not anticipating making any changes. I mean, even if I can only get three-quarters the way up the slide, that's okay.
Hmm.
I mean, listen, I'm not going to be, I'm not winning any races. I mean, that's not my goal. Now, that's not to say, somebody who's had this procedure couldn't do that. It's just not me. I mean, I'm not going to be. I don't think that I'm going to be, in the next head of the Charles. My objective is to get back to recreational rowing, and if it goes beyond that, that's great. Um, but I've got a beautiful old Garofalo double,
Um,
and it's very stable as it is.
mhm.
So I don't anticipate needing to make any changes to it. Um, and no, I think I just want to I just love rowing, and I just want to be able to get back and feel, come up to the front, just drop those blades in the water and push away and feel that connection and
Mhm.
feel the clunk of the collar against the oarlock. I love that.
Yes, yes. I love the boat sounds. I always think that someone needs to make like some I don't know, someone probably already has just rowing boat sounds. I could just listen to
Yeah.
the sound of the water rushing against the
Yes,
hull, the
absolutely.
sound of the little whoosh of the slide,
Yeah.
just like all the just the different sounds, the way the oarlocks kind of, they hum a little and yeah, I would love to
I
kind
couldn't
of
agree with you more. Absolutely.
I could just put that in the background while I'm working. Like that would be amazing. So someone needs to do that. Someone who's really good at audio needs to record all of that and just have so it's something that we can relax to. So
Well, actually, I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to give a pitch to a product, but I have no connection with them. But
Mhm.
um, there's a very interesting option in the Hydro app for
Oh.
no instructor. So, and I've actually been using that.
Hmm.
So when you select no instructor, it takes you to there are a variety of videos shot both with from a stern view
Hmm.
and the bow view of a
Oh.
skull going up and down various bodies of water all around the world. So you just select the time, which I've been doing because right now my rowing is too slow for any of their normal workouts.
Hmm.
So I just select 10 minutes and I can row down, well, whatever it is, the Thames or some beautiful lakes up in New Hampshire or Maine, and you do just hear the sounds.
Oh, that's amazing. Because I know that's the best part. Like when you're out, like I love team boats. Nothing against team boats, but when
Yes.
you're out in the single, it's just you. And like I don't like rowers don't put headphones in. I don't know anybody who puts their headphones in because it's like
No,
it's the sounds of just like it's the sound of the boat, you're breathing, the
absolutely.
birds, the river, that like everything kind of all together that just gives you the feels. Like that's the
Yeah,
best part about rowing is that
yeah.
that quiet kind of solitary time and I think it's like that idea of team being so different than that like team is like loud and like has like
Yes.
punch to it and there's a little bit of chaos because the coxswain's figuring things out and the rowers in the boat are figuring there's lots of other noises that kind of happen. You don't have that like centeredness and peace and serenity that you get from the single. So I know
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people who do team first and then start rowing in the single, and they're like, I'm never going back.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like there's
And in
just
actual fact,
peace.
that's one of the things that I really love about my wooden boat because it creaks.
Hmm.
You can hear the boat, the wood is alive and it's leather against wood and brass fittings and they all move and they make sounds.
Yeah, yeah. I have a 1981 Pinert that I was
Ah,
gifted, and I put it all together. It took me a couple of months to do it, and I took it out on the water. And you're right, like just like the sound of like the tracks on like the wooden.
yes.
It like just as the seat moves up, it makes the sound like, and then the gunnels are wooden, and so like
Yes.
as you place the oars in the water, like you can feel that tension
Yep.
and dynamic, or the
Yep.
the gunnel's giving a little bit, the rigger's
Yep.
pushing against.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
like it's
Absolutely.
all yeah, and you don't get that from all these newer newfangled boats.
No, you don't. You don't. You
You don't
don't.
get all that input. It just
No.
it's glorious. I love it. I want to ask you, while you were recovering, did you read any particular books? Did you read rowing books or any type of inspiration, listen to podcasts or anything that kind of got you through the downtime?
Um, not particularly rowing related, not really. No, I can't say that I really did.
Okay. More than just enjoying the downtime and kind of being slowed down was what you enjoyed about that time rather
I
than
think,
doing.
well, I think I was focusing on um, my own recovery, and remember, particularly in the initial period, first of all, there's a lot of pain. There's certainly an enormous amount of let's say discomfort,
Mhm.
and everything takes a long time. So if you have to get out of bed and let's say, you getting out of bed to come to dinner. Okay. So
Mm.
now getting out of bed takes 5 minutes, and then you've got to get your what you call them,
The brace on
your
and
brace on. And then you shuffle to the dining room table, and then you say you have to sit down very gingerly, you don't want to interrupt. So everything takes a long time. So and that saps energy.
mhm,
So then by the time you sort of you and you don't sleep that well, so you also get, just it's you're not in in great shape, I would say. But I think I spent a lot of time thinking that the time that I just did a lot of reading, nothing to do with rowing, just ordinary reading. And I was thinking about coaching,
mm,
and I was thinking about how can I use this to, so that's what I did.
amazing. And if you had to give anyone who's in this situation some advice, what would be some advice that you'd want to share about deciding to have the surgery, rehab process? What would be the number one thing you'd want to share?
Well, I'd say probably a couple of things. Without any question, the most important thing is try not to get yourself into this situation in the first place. In other words, if you are working out, do it in a smart way. I mean, I'm sure you have seen so many instances where you see, not just kids, but adults in gyms doing the wrong thing,
Mhm,
using the wrong technique, and that will put a strain on your body, and your body will only last so long, and then something's going to give.
mhm,
So be very, very careful and be smart about how you work out. So that's obviously, prevention is better than, so that's the number one thing. I would say if it turns out that you have to have this, find the best possible. I mean, this is an obvious thing to say. Find the best possible conservative surgeon.
mhm,
There's a lot of stuff out there on the internet. It's true there are some interesting new technological, let's say, apparent solutions
mhm,
being pitched by these people in Beverly Hills. But number one, your insurance doesn't cover that. So if you've got an extra 100 or $150,000, then terrific. You
mhm.
can explore some of those things. Um, but for the rest of us, those are not, that's not a possibility. So, you know, a lumbar fusion is not a small thing. It's a major surgery. It's been practiced for decades, but it still can be very problematic. But if you have to have it, if your choice is extreme pain,
Mhm.
then it's not a choice. I mean, for me, it just wasn't an option. My pain was so extreme, and it was preventing me from living my life. So it wasn't a choice. So, assuming you have to have it, then find yourself the best possible doctor, and then listen to what they say.
Mhm.
And then maybe even be a little bit more conservative on the recovery. Make sure that you have somebody to help, to take care of you because you are going to need it.
Yeah.
Um, and just, in Italian, there's a brilliant expression, piano piano, slowly. Take it slowly, slowly, in your recovery and as you move forward, because you do not want to. There's the nasty little thing. It's called adjacent disc disease, And what essentially happens is that if you can imagine a normal person, say like you, actually, I'm not sure how many vertebrae we've got, but whatever you've got, I've got two less. All
Mhm.
right. So let's say, for example, you jump down, you're on a chair and you jump down onto the floor.
Yeah.
Your back, all of those vertebrae that you've got is equally absorbing the shock. Okay. If you take one or two of those vertebrae out of the equation, now a smaller number of vertebrae are absorbing that same shock.
Yeah.
So what tends to happen is that the vertebra, both north and south of the fusion site, take extra strain.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem starts to develop within 10 years if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So, pick a sport, just walk or pick a sport, say like cycling, which you can, I mean, I'm perfectly positioned on my bike. My back is straight, no strain. I can easily ride now for an hour and a half at a time, no sweat, probably 2 hours even. Um, and and be very, very careful on the erg.
Yeah.
Work with, don't just go and find any old physical therapist. Find a physical therapist who is also a rower and understands rowing, and then and people like yourself.
Mhm.
Uh, then you're not there aren't so many of you, but there are a number of you,
Yeah.
and you need to absolutely go and find somebody who can help you. Um, because if you start rowing incorrectly, you're going to get back into trouble.
Yeah. And it makes such a difference. I mean, I see several people who go to other physical therapists, and I say any physical therapist can get you out of pain for your day activities of daily living. So getting you back to daily living, but rowing is so specific, and there's so many little things that someone might be doing that can result in bringing that pain back that I've seen people who had an injury maybe a year ago. They went to a regular physical therapist. They're back to doing, but they just can't return to sport. They just can't get back into rowing. And it takes the time with sitting with me and figuring out, okay, what are we doing? And starting from scratch. What are you doing at the finish? How are you developing your body angle? What does it look like on the recovery? What position are you getting into on the catch? How are you managing muscularly? How are you managing your catch? Because a lot of times there's holes in this muscle sequencing because of the injury. Your brain doesn't necessarily wire everything the same anymore because for a while there you were guarding an injury. So your brain's turning muscles off that it would normally turn on. It's turning on things that it normally would turn off. And so you have to figure all that stuff out, put the pieces back together so you can actually have a functional rowing stroke. And that takes a rowing eye, and it takes coaches like you too to be able to stop those kids and say, wait a second, you can't row like this. You're going to slow down the boat, but more importantly, you're going to hurt yourself. So
Yeah,
being able to make those changes are so huge. So
yeah,
huge.
it's very, very true. And go slowly. And I mean, I think, I don't know what I don't know what your feeling is about, jumping on the erg, but I suppose, if you're 65 years old and you've had a lumbar fusion, you probably shouldn't be doing 1 hour pieces. That probably puts too much strain, even if you are rowing perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to love, jumping on the erg, cranking up diastrates, and pushing away for 45 minutes. But I probably shouldn't be doing that.
Yep.
I think probably 20 to 30 minutes is enough, and do that 3 times a week, and that's probably what I should be doing.
And the forces on the erg are just so intense, and you're moving your momentum into the catch, and you're using that moment. You have to stop that
Sure.
momentum with the foot plate, and then you got to push that momentum away. And the boat is so different. The boat is just so much more forgiving, and the dynamics of forces are just different. I put a lot of people on sliders,
I
but
was going to say,
even on the
yeah,
sliders, it's not the same as the gentleness of the boat. The boat really just responds much differently. And your
That's right.
body has to manage that dynamic between the two, even if you're on the sliders and then going on being in the boat. I find that the leap from return to sport really happens with that practice. Like, and I take a lot of the kids out, and I have a double. And I'll put them in the double with me and we'll row. We'll row as long as we possibly can. But as soon as the pain comes up, I'm able to say, okay, I'll just gondolier you back to the dock because if that the problem is practice is so difficult. You know, those 2 solid hours, you got to be able to carry the boat, put it in the water, you got to be able to practice. And then you don't want to be the one halfway through practice says, Coach, you got to pull me out. My back is hurting. So then it creates this dynamic where these kids don't want to say anything, or even a master's or an adult, you don't want to stop the practice. So you grin and bear it, you get back to the dock and you've done the damage already.
That's right.
So it's a tough sport to return to when there's these really hard parameters that like yes you have to make it through these 2 hours, like it's all or nothing.
Yeah, I quite agree. I mean, I think the idea of sliders is great, but you've got to have the space for that. And
Hmm.
not everybody has the space for sliders. But yeah, that would be a very good option because I think it would take away that because you're right. I think the erg is quite brutal. I mean, I actually enjoy it, but yeah.
I mean, we enjoy it. We you know, as rowers, I don't know what it is about us, but we kind of enjoy it. Like we don't mind the toughness of it or the pain or the grit of it. It just doesn't bother us all that much. But you know, that machine is can be really tough on you. It's
Absolutely.
not forgiving. And you know, I cringe when I go to the gym and I see people have it cranked up to like 10 and,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and people are on there and they're squatting the catch. That's one of my big pet peeves is you come up to the catch in a squat position and then you're pulling on it and it's I was in a CrossFit gym for a while, so that was that I was running space out
And
of there
we've all seen
watching
we've
that.
all seen that. We've all
Well,
seen.
I've got one final question for you because I don't want to
Sure.
keep you too long. If you had to pick one piece of equipment to kind of a rowing piece of equipment, what would you be? Like, would you be like a seat or an oarlock or a slide or and why?
I must say, that's an interesting question. Um, I think that I would like to be the blade. I think I would like to go into the water and I think, because I think that just from a physics point of view, that's really interesting. You
Yeah.
know, the pressure behind the blade um, is right because it's that difference I mean, I can't say that the biomechanics is my strong suit.
Mhm.
But is that correct, right? It's the pressure difference between the front
Yeah,
and the back of the
yeah,
blade.
between the front of the blade and like the little swirl that it creates that
Yes.
locks the blade in
Yeah.
and I always think of like the blade, the idea that the blade it likes this nice little C in there. It's moving, but it's not moving. We're not pulling it through the water. Like I love to talk to novices about we're not pulling the blade through the water. We are setting in the water and we're pushing the boat through and past it.
Yes. Yes.
And kind
Pushing
of
the boat away.
yeah, that idea that like we're anchoring and we're drawing the boat through, like through the doorway kind of idea.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, the blade, that's a good one. The blade's a dynamic one because it goes in and out of the water.
Yeah.
It changes position too, so it's dynamic the whole rowing
Yeah.
stroke.
I mean, to excuse the pun, but you're at the bleeding edge,
Hmm.
being
Yes,
the blade.
very,
Yeah.
very good. Well, Tony, thank you so much for
Oh,
speaking
it's a
with me. I
great
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
It really is a great pleasure.
And I would love to do another conversation because I was reading through your bio that like you were over in Ukraine teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to. Did you coach also while you were there too?
No, I did not coach. I was there. The reason that I was there, so I work. I've got this kind of not unofficial, but I've got this appointment at Babson at the Institute for Social Innovation.
Mhm.
Um, it sounds more fancy than it actually is. I don't have a specific job. I'm not an employee,
Mhm.
but it's just an affiliation. If they need me to, sometimes I give advice to faculty or students or something like that. But the truth is that over the last year or so, and certainly over the last year or so, I've been doing less and less. And I'm basically sort of finished with that. But at the time, to the Kiev School of Economics to I've been talking to them about building an entrepreneurship program.
Mhm.
And I was trying to pitch Babson, which, as you may or may not know, is sort of that's their stake in the ground is entrepreneurship education.
Mhm.
And I know that they were talking to other universities, but I went over there to sort of pitch Babson. And one thing led to another, and they asked me if I wanted to go over and teach. So that's what I did. I went over and taught. And while I was there, I made contact with this rowing club and was taken out by this young man whose parents whose parents ran the place. They owned it,
Mhm.
and they were Olympic coaches.
Oh wow.
And we went out on the Dnipro with literally missiles going overhead.
Oh
I
my,
mean, it was completely bizarre.
wow. That's amazing. Yeah, we'll have to have a longer chat about
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And
sure,
yeah, and get all that information. I would love to kind of because it's
sure.
just so dynamic. I mean, it's just amazing to you think about rowing and rowing, throughout the world and all the different conditions that rowers are experiencing and life is happening around and through our sport and being able to see kind of the dynamics of that would be a really interesting talk.
Well, it goes on. I mean, while I was there, there were two other guys rowing. There were some people had making a barbecue. I mean, life goes on. It was a weekend. It was a beautiful day, but we were literally in the middle of a war zone. I mean, it was completely bizarre. Actually, there's an interesting project going on now where both crews that I'm involved with, Brooks and Bedford, are both donating boats and equipment to Ukraine.
Oh my goodness, wow.
So there's a guy that's been organizing this, and he's coming to pick, and there's a container going with equipment for Ukraine.
That's amazing. Oh my goodness. Yeah. But thank you so much. Well, and
A
like I said,
great
we will
pleasure.
connect. Yeah, we will connect again because I'd love to because my clinic is also it's an entrepreneurial adventure. So
Yes, absolutely. Anytime.
so
Adrian, it's
connecting
a
on that
delight
would
to
be.
talk to you. Just let me know anytime. I'll be delighted to help.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Tony, and take care and happy
Thank you.
rowing. And
Thank you very much. And to
and I'll
you.
be in touch.
Okay. All the best.
All right,
Okay.
have a great rest of the
Yes,
day. Take
yes.
care.